Go. Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to Dangerous Rhetoric. This is episode 84. Before I jump into it, I'm going to kindly remind you guys, please like, comment, and subscribe. We are almost at 1,000 subs. It's taken like a year and a half, but we've been trudging and it's paid off. And if you want to help us financially, then please donate because it does help us a lot. We have some very difficult conversations, and yeah, you don't always make a lot of friends having these conversations.
Links are in the description.
With all of that said, today we are joined once again by the wandering cartoonist who serves no master, the based, the handsome George Alexopoulos. My friend, thanks for joining us.
Oh, you forgot the fast-handed.
The fast-handed.
Yeah, absolutely. It is my pleasure and an honor. Thank you again.
No, we'd love to have you back.
Yeah.
Actually, now this time we actually have an audience, so
Yes.
it's good of you to rejoin.
Well, I was going to bring that up before we went into it. As you know, Alex joined us on episode 18 of the podcast, and you were one of our first guests ever. We hadn't really talked to many people on the show before you. I think you were like our fourth guest, maybe. And I was honestly shocked you even like wanted to talk to us because we had like no audience or anyone at all. So it was a very flattering thing, and you've been a great supporter of the show, so thanks, man. We appreciate it.
Well, it's kind of you to say, but to be honest, I don't think this is a silly side effect of social media and stuff. A person's value is not by like how many numbers they have.
That's true.
I on the opposite end of that, I would say my value is overvalued because I have followers or something. That doesn't make me any more special than any other guy. I think good, intelligent conversation like what you guys do is as valuable, maybe more valuable than, say, someone with a lot of followers who just talks poo-poo out of his mouth all the time. It's boring. You know?
You don't talk poo-poo. You definitely don't
You
talk
make your poo-poo very cunning.
Your
and
poo-poo's
entertaining.
It's pretty.
Poopies. Yeah. I forgot. I can curse on your guys' show, right?
Yeah, you can curse here.
We're not even monetized. So.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get monetized and then get demonetized.
And, well, maybe one day we'll actually have like parents being like, "Yeah, we'd like to listen to your show around our children."
So we get curse too much. Yeah, we're not there yet. But
Well, I'll use my church voice for
use your church. All right, I'm going to throw the ball to Brent.
Well, first of all, I want to plug Mr. George Alexopoulos' clothing line.
Oh, yes.
I'm wearing one of his originals.
Yes.
I Like America t-shirts.
So offensive.
that's so much hate.
It's so good. I wore it to Burlington. I went up there last weekend to do a little collaboration with the LGBT Alliance Vermont and the Disaffected podcast. And the first night I was there, I was wearing it around Burlington, like out on the street, and I got so many looks. Like you would. It's like I was wearing like a fucking like must kill all immigrants shirt or something. Like
I like the red and the white letters because you know that's what they're looking at, and immediately your brain is thinking of a particular hat. You know, and that's what triggers them, but they're confused by the message. You know,
it's such, and the font also is like kind of cartoony. Like, people that are listening, like it's just very like chill, like almost. It's the most like wholesome thing.
Yeah, I like America.
You could see on a T-shirt.
Yeah, it was just some character in the background of one of my strips had it on, and then some people said, "Oh, I'd want that as a shirt." Like, surely nobody would wear that. But that's a lot of things on my little shop. People ask for things, and I don't understand. But
yeah, like let's talk about the "Kiss My Ass" cards.
Yeah,
I have them somewhere.
That was from the heart. That's true, though.
That's true. Yeah, man. I never handed any out, but I should have. I never even bothered going to any places that had the the Vax passes and stuff. But
I think that was just to feel good to have them.
So. Just in case.
Folks that want to check out George's wares can head on over to Etsy.com and search for Studio NJ, all one word. And you can see here on the screen, I've got it pulled up. George has one little t-shirt that says, "We bussin'." I love it. The 90s Stussy Diamonds.
Oh my God, that S, man.
I've drawn so many of those.
We all have. That thing is a mystery, man. It is a mystery.
It's coming back. I don't know why.
It's always going to come back. It's never going to die.
And then he's got a lot of his ship posts, or like the collection of little like one-offs that he does that are amazing. I've got a couple of those. And then there are the Mary Sue issues, which when's number 6 going to pop up? Any idea?
Mary Sue 6. I could elaborate later. I've written like up to 30, but I have to find time to draw them. So
Yeah.
I'm debating how to present the rest of the story.
Got you. Yeah, and I think this is one of my favorites, the print where Joe Biden steals the blackness from somebody who won't vote for him.
Yeah.
This is so good.
Classic. Yeah, for those who want, to know maybe a little bit more about George's backstory and, how he got started and ended up where he is, definitely be sure to go back to episode 18 when we were still noobs. Great conversation, though. Watch that.
Definitely.
But, Brant, I know you wanted to jump in and talk about Mary Sue.
Yeah.
I only read issue 1, so I don't have a lot yet to really comment on besides the art style, which I love. But Brent has been like a little addicted, and I think he like already banged out like how many of them?
All of them.
All of them?
I read them all.
Okay.
You got all 5, right?
I have all 5, yeah.
Okay.
And I like how there's sort of cliffhangers. So like, right, he sort of like ends off like, it's a point, like each one is very self-contained and it does tell a good story.
Yeah, the first was on the cruise, right? And then it ends with her like...
Well, it ends with her in the mech suit
in the
about
mech
to start
suit,
the fight.
yeah.
So and the thing that was cool about that is that like you just want to go to the next one. Like it reminds me of like Netflix bingeables in that you have this way of ending the story right at the point where like it sort of summarizes what has been happening up to this point, but it also leaves like, okay, there's all this stuff that's going to keep happening in the future, and like I'm desperate to know what it is. So bravo at writing a really good hook in that first one.
I guess it's like episodic, you would say. Like those really good classic shows were episodic, and like every episode did have like a self-contained sort of plot, but there was that overarching plot for the whole series. And I think a lot of that has definitely been sort of lost in the bingeable style of writing things today. I don't know, like Netflix and that sort of thing.
One of the challenges of writing a serialized story, and it's different from, say, a novel where the end is you're holding the whole thing, and you know it ends at some point, and you know where you are in the story, like a map. Issue-by-issue comic series, you have to always put hooks at the end of a chapter to get people curious about what's going to happen next. And then even throughout the whole story, you want to put little breadcrumbs. So in the first 2 issues, the main character, Rosemary, encounters characters who escape, let's say, into future issues. And she wants to hunt them down, but she also has her day job. So I want to examine a little bit of what she does in her profession, but then she has this personal vendetta that's sort of like a carrot on a stick, where she wants to advance that story, but she has other things she has to do too. So it's like episodes in an anime where there is a main quest for her, but there's all these side quests as well. And the biggest problem now is figuring out how to find time to keep drawing new issues, which I want to do. But let's say if my rate is a page per day drawing and painting, and an issue is 24 pages, that's almost roughly a month of work per issue. And that's full time. So I'm also doing my political strips and stuff on the side, which is what's more popular.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm more interested in writing comics like Mary Sue. So I'm trying to figure out how to balance my schedule. I don't have the answer right now.
I remember, when we hung out a few months ago, you went deep into this and that trying to find that balance between, say, providing the work that your audience really does want to see, and obviously you want to provide that service to them, because they keep coming back for it. But your heart is definitely more in this, I guess, deeper, more creative stuff, less so in the satirical work, which is what you're mostly known for. There has to be some kind of way to bridge the gap, I would say. And would you say you found some supporters more from among the people who like your political stuff, say like us, who end up looking into your more creative work and buying stuff, and actually supporting you? Like, do you find that there's a crossover?
I don't know what percentage of the readers. It's hard to say because so many people want different things. Sometimes I joke about doing not safe for work illustrations, pinups and stuff.
Yeah.
A certain amount of those people would love that. I did a calendar for 2 years ago, I think, of just pinups of like a sexy police officer lady. And people liked that. But then I get other comments of saying, oh, don't do that because I'll unfollow you and never read your stuff again. So I want to try to not piss everyone off. And
That's hard. You can't. It's so hard to do that though, and to stay true to what you do and to stay creative. You're always going to piss someone off.
Well,
So
that's the trouble is a human being is a very complex creature, and I could act like, for instance, if I'm doing a children's book, which I am, I don't. People could say like, oh, but he's also drawn pinups, and he also draws ultraviolence, and he also draws children's stuff. That's weird, but I see it as I'm just a complete human adult male, and I have many different interests, and it's weird, I guess, if you put my ultra-violent stuff next to a children's book, but they're not for the same audience. And I want to try to do a little bit of everything because it satisfies me. But that's also selfish. So I have to creatively satisfy my own cravings, let's say, but I also have an audience to serve.
Yeah.
So it's the tightrope walk. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't want to sacrifice the political current event strips too much, because a lot of people seem to like that. And but I do want to do fiction as well. That's where my heart is, I think.
Yeah.
So I'll just see what I have time for, I suppose.
Yeah, it strikes me that, like, as you were talking about the episodic nature of the story and how Rosemary is going through everything, that's kind of like life, and probably why the story resonates. Like,
I was thinking that too.
Yeah, like we all sort of have like this like overarching main goal of where we want to end up, or I mean, some of us do, but where we want to end up eventually, or in 5-10 years. And then the day job, the grind, everything we have to do in order to just survive and get to that point. And it does kind of, I guess that's where the model of the main quest or the story quest and all the subquests came from for all video games and stuff.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to head there, and you have that motivation and that goal, but you just keep getting pulled this way and that way by all this other shit that just keeps coming up. And that is very much life.
No, it's just funny because we have in World of Warcraft, they have these things called daily quests, which are basically like jobs. Like you go in there and you do it, and you're like grinding faction or.
But do you get actual money for it, Brent?
Not like actual money, but you get rewarded in the game, which is just like life.
Yeah. In the case of Mary Sue, especially, it's only 5 issues in, so there's not a lot of development. But I can give you a peek behind the curtain in the sense of she has this really powerful suit that can change like an exosuit. It can fly, it can go underwater, it has powerful laser guns and so and so. And the joke is that she's ultra powered, but she sucks at using it. She's really clumsy, and she hates doing work, but she herself could technically take over the universe with this suit if she wanted to, but she's not. She just doesn't have the drive for it. But what interests me is in the first 2 issues, this crisis happens where bad guys get away and she wants revenge. And I could force the story to go in the direction that she wants it to go, where she just gets on her ship and immediately beelines for them, and whatever happens, happens. But then there's all these side things that also will show character development, things like her past and how she got the suit in the first place, and her bizarre mentor who is trying to find her work, but she's so bad at it. Yeah, like she ends up paying damages to her clients and losing all the money that she would have gotten. And I still have to finish that underwater story, which was supposed to finish on issue 5, but then interesting things happen, so I expanded the story more, and that keeps happening. As I keep writing, I'm like, oh, let's keep doing more issues in this direction. It's like, no, she has to leave the underwater town. But now it's like, no, there's more interesting things that can happen while she's down there.
That's an exciting writing process, though. It's like you do have like a kind of loose plan, right? So it's not like you have no plan, but there's very much like a natural evolution that you're allowing to happen. And I like the idea of like just kind of letting the characters tell the story, but sometimes maybe you do have to reel the characters in because like what their personalities are like you said, the character might just want to go directly for that, but is that realistically how a story will play out? Sometimes something will come in, interrupt the direction that the character's going in, and they end up somewhere else. And I think it's kind of up to the writer to find that balance between what would this character do, but also I don't want to make the story too predictable either.
Yeah, it's interesting about the writing process is one thing that I picked off of Stephen King in his book on writing. He describes the process as more of like excavating the story. Like the writer, like a lot of people see the writer and they think, okay, you're the writer, you're in charge. You're just deciding what happens every step along the way. You are the decider, you're the king, you're the god. And yes, that is true. But on the other hand, like you create these characters and you want the story to be true to the characters, and then maintaining that is actually what keeps the spell of the story believable, which is why Marvel is having a lot of trouble because a lot of their stories are not believable.
You don't want to see the writer's hand in the puppet show.
Yeah, exactly. The fucking wires have to be invisible in order for the illusion of the puppet show to be maintained. And so it's fun to watch you go through that process and learn more about Rosemary. One thing I also wanted to mention, I didn't know what the Mary Sue archetype was until like reading through, like I knew that there was an archetype and I knew that you were referencing it, but I didn't know what it was. So I had to like look it up, and I was
you want to go into that, or maybe George can explain?
Yeah, George, why don't you explain
what the Mary Sue trope is?
Oh, I'll probably explain it poorly, but it's the archetype of, I think it originated with Star Trek fan fiction, something like that, where a character was named Mary Sue, I think. And she was she wrote herself as this godlike character, sort of. Everybody loved her. She did everything perfectly. And when she died at the end of the story, all the characters like mourned her and saluted her, and she could do no wrong. So there's a stereotype of, say, Rey from Star Wars.
That's who I was thinking of. It's exactly what I was thinking of. I'm like,
that's one of them. But anytime a Mary Sue pops up, it's an overpowered, usually a female character. There's a male version called Gary Stu, I think. And but the idea is that they have no imperfections. They're the main character. It's like God wrote himself into the story, and they're just perfect. And that really makes for bad writing, if that jives with what you guys read as research.
Yeah. The other thing that Stephen King said in On Writing is avoid inserting yourself in the story, which is kind of ironic because he does that in his magnum opus, and it's kind of a little weird. But that's one of the things he says, and you have to also watch out for sort of like writing for the character, putting yourself in a particular character's perspective, and then writing the story such that it benefits them constantly and that they're like the most amazing thing. Because interesting writing is writing where the characters are flawed, that they have these innate character flaws, just like normal people, that they have to wrestle with and grapple with, and it often gets them into trouble.
Was it Peterson who was talking about like what happened with Superman comics? Because I remember he was talking, I think it was him talking about this concept, but Superman eventually got to a point like where the sales dropped because he just started becoming too powerful. And this is why they had to invent kryptonite, because the stories became boring. People couldn't relate to Superman anymore. The next thing you know, he's so powerful, he's juggling planets and shit. Like, he has no flaws. There's nothing wrong with him, that he becomes so far removed from humanity that it becomes difficult for humans to relate. And this is why I say, like, Greek myths are so popular, because the gods themselves are very human. They aren't these perfect beings. So,
yeah. I mean, they were... the Greek gods specifically were personified ideas. So in order to tell a story back then, it was too abstract to say, I don't know, the god of wisdom did X, Y, and Z. Or no, there was no god of wisdom. So wisdom became a person, and then the story became more understandable because we understand what we are, sort of. And it helped us understand what humans were and desires. So if back then it was odd that, Zeus became a bull and banged some woman or something, but in the abstract, that must mean something if you think about it. As far as telling stories goes, how do I put it? With Superman, there's a thing called power creep in storytelling, I think. Are you guys familiar with Dragon Ball?
Yeah.
Enough. Yeah.
I mean, I watched it growing up.
I watched it growing up too, but I haven't seen it in years.
Well, for the sake of the listeners, let's say that there's 5 characters, and each one has a different power level of like 1 to 10. Some guy is a 10, some guy's an 8, whatever. It's really exciting to see the guy with the lower power level have to beat the boss with the higher power level, and say a 6 has to beat a 10, so he has to train really hard. And it's really exciting because is he going to win? How can he possibly win against a 10? And then it's really exciting, and he beats the 10 just by an inch, and everyone's cheering, and that's what a good story is. And then, unfortunately, someone shows up, and he's a level 100. And how do we beat him? We have to train extra hard now. And what happens is the numbers keep going up until you're in the millions at one point. And it just is so abstract and weird that I, George, am maybe a power level 3. You know, I can't shoot fireballs. But the point of a story like that is you want to feel the power of the main character who you're cheering for and identify with their struggle. I like to read a story. I was just chatting with a nice lady the other day about my children's stories about mice. And she was saying that she identifies with mice characters because she always felt little and underpowered. And she likes to read a story where a mouse saves the day, even though they're little. And the hobbits in The Lord of the Rings are the same way.
Same
Amazing that a little hobbit like Frodo can travel all the way to Mount Doom and save the day. So I, a mere reader who has no powers, can identify with the weakest character. We like to cheer for the underdogs.
Yep.
And that's why I'm so offended by like a Captain Marvel. And these writers are such idiots. I don't understand why they keep doing this mistake, but good for me, I guess. Like, I want to create a powerful female character, they say. So her power is that she can punch things really hard and shoot lasers that kill the universe. And how am I supposed to, a man, I can't relate to that. I can't do that. I cheer for like Spider-Man, who has real life problems. He can't pay his rent. That's why I like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I like Batman because he has no real powers aside from he's clever and intelligent. And
rich. Don't forget rich.
Well, rich is identifiable in the sense of we say, if only I had that money and intelligence, maybe I could be a little bit like Batman. So he's relatable far more to me than Superman.
That's a good point. Yeah.
In general, I think overpowered characters are a joke. And I never create a character like that in my fiction unless it's like, say, One Punch Man. If you want a fun series that plays with the idea of the overpowered protagonist. One Punch Man, the anime and manga, is really funny in that he's so strong he's bored. But he's bored of his own story.
That's fine. I have not seen One Punch Man yet.
It's fun. If you have access to the anime, you would enjoy the first season at least.
Awesome. I'm gonna check that one out.
That's kind of the interesting twist on it. Like they were very self-aware of what they were doing, writing that story, and they included the fact that having an overpowered protagonist makes the story boring, and they were mocking that trope by using it. It's actually really clever writing. Yeah. The other thing I want to so you said you had like 30-ish issues of Mary Sue lined up, but you got to figure out so how often do you think you'll be like maybe like one a quarter?
You know,
as often as they come.
I wish I could answer that. Like, I've been circling the bull thinking about that for months. I think I finished episode 5, issue 5 in December. So what? Man, that's 10 months ago.
Oh yeah.
Man. And it's all right. So I had done an Indiegogo for, hey, pay me to do these 3 issues or something. And then a bunch of people paid me and it was very nice. But then I'm thinking, like, how am I supposed to find time out of my schedule to pay myself to do another issue, which is going to end on another cliffhanger? And then people have to wait another 6 months for the next issue, which will also end on a cliffhanger. It's like, I can't serve my audience. I'll just be pissing people off and leaving them high and dry. And I think it will end up annoying people. So another option.
It might, but look, devoted fans who are true fans will wait a long time. And I'm speaking as like a Tool fan right now. I don't know if you listen to the band Tool, but us motherfuckers waited like 15 years for that new record. I'm just saying. Like, and we kept checking. We kept listening to the music and like checking the news once in a while. Though. Where's that record?
But albums is one thing, and also like the nature of the story is episodic, and they're very quick to consume, and they take very long time to produce.
What I mean is once you find that dedicated audience who really truly loves what you do, they will wait for you sometimes, even when they're pissed at you. Like, we were all mad at Tool. We were like, Tool, come on, just put the fuck out already. Just finish the goddamn thing, you know?
Yeah.
But we still listened to it when it came out, you know? We still we still flocked there. So
it would be like releasing one song at a time in my case, and people are saying just put out the whole album.
Put the album out, yeah.
It's hard because I also I'm playing with the idea of what if I wrote the story or other stories as well as prose novels, which can tell the story and I can even illustrate them, but even though they're made to be comics, there is something that's going to be lost there, but at least the story's done, and then people can enjoy some of what I intended. Because let's say I only have so many months left in my career, let's say hundreds, I don't know how to calculate it. Let's say I retire at 70 if I'm lucky. So I only have maybe 25-ish years of good work left in me. And there are so many stories I want to tell, and there's just no way I can draw them all on my current budget. Even if I got famous and got lots of money, I still couldn't do it by myself. I would have to hire staff. And so I'm thinking like maybe I'll turn it into a book, but then I have to teach myself to write better. And
because that's a different medium for sure, and it is important to consider those things too. You know, what medium are you putting the story into? Because writing a novel is definitely not the same thing as writing.
Also, your pictures are so pretty. Oh my god, I gotta show some of these too. Like just the opening, like the first page, I was like in awe. So everybody can see. This is the top panel, just like the ship in space, and then we get a zoom in. Big spaceship. Oh, it's not.
It's too dark, Brent.
It's too dark. It's not showing up great, but it's really pretty, and I love it. And the colors are amazing. Oh, and I wanted to really. This is one of the things I wanted to bring up was your ability to draw, like, dudes that are fucking hot and you're straight. I'm like, how does like this guy is one of my favorite. He's so
Brent, I'm pretty sure straight guys can draw attractive, man.
I know, but
don't
how does
think
that work?
That's ever been a skill that has ever been like just limited to gays.
It fascinated me. I was like, damn, like George can draw some like really pretty chicks.
Granted,
he can draw really hot guys.
Granted, I guess the gays probably would draw them particularly good, but
but you would think so. But it's George.
As you guys know, I am secretly gay. So
pull the picture up, show everyone. You really grab my tits. Like this is out.
I couldn't help myself.
Everyone fucking knows this already. Like just so everyone knows.
Yeah.
George is out of the closet.
That's it. That's how I can draw handsome men. That's the secret.
Watch those hands because they will study you. Those hands will study you, and that's how he draws himself.
That's true.
Oh man.
Yeah, but I was thinking about this the other day. I have received, when you gave me that compliment, Brent, I've had comments, I won't say who they were, I suppose, out of politeness. Other gay men have said, I draw really sexy men, let's say. And then the question they would always ask afterwards is, are you gay? It's like, well, I think there's something with artists, like, say, Michelangelo and Donatello and those guys with their statues and stuff. They think about the ideal figure. Any person I'm trying to draw, I'm always thinking, I'm trying to tell myself, how can I make this look better, more statuesque, more idealized? Comics and all art really is like, all beauty, let's say, is how can I make this good thing even better? How can I make it so sublime? Not to say that my characters look that good, but I always want to try to take a character. See, that's the thing, though. I'm talking in too many different directions. If I go to a museum and I look at amazing statues and stuff, I don't feel any sexual desire for the men. No offense to them. But I still look at the human machine and I say, that is so amazing and beautiful. And how can I make those curves even more amazing to look at? And for a guy like myself, I look at, David, the statue, and I think I could theoretically have that body if I work out and stuff. But that only because the human animal psychologically wants to be filled with awe and admiration. And as an artist, I guess I'm unusual. I'm different from See, I don't think I'm different from most guys because they go to the gym and talk about, man, hey bro, you have amazing muscles.
No,
Good job, good for
I
you.
think you're comfortable with your own sexuality, that there's no like need to even explain it. You know, it's like, and it shouldn't even be weird that a straight male artist can draw beautiful men and paint beautiful men. It's not an
It's
unusual.
not weird to me, no. But I would love to talk about this with, say, a critic who's trying to talk, like, if they want to say, like, you secretly are repressed and yada yada.
I think it would depend on how much nude men you started producing. Then I would have questions. I'll be like, I don't know. He paints a lot of naked dudes. Let's critically analyze this artist here. I don't know. He might be gay. Pretty sure Michelangelo was like bi, at least. He definitely wrote poems and stuff to men. So
I do think he was probably attracted to men on some level because the way that he sculpted them was so detailed but again, as an artist, I don't know if I can speak for other non-artist guys, but like I would look at that stuff all day with pure admiration and study it and want to be able to make that myself. There is no better sculptor in human history, maybe. So I think it's silly to look at even that movie Bros. We could talk about that sometime, where there were screenshots posted about like they were like, I don't know what, I guess they were having a good time with multiple guys and stuff. I look at that screenshot and the first thing that I think of is, oh man, if I drew that guy, look at those back muscles, look at the way his back is shaped, and I'm thinking as the human machine and all the little bones and muscles and
how can I recapture that and replicate it?
How would I draw that?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm the same. As a painter, it's the same exact thing, you know. And I look at women's bodies that way too, not just men's bodies. Although I haven't really painted many women, but when I do, it's going to be the same sort of thing. You know, there's no like sexual arousal. But even when I look at like attractive art of men, there's not always sexual arousal. Maybe sometimes, but often I'm in that artist mode, like you're describing, and sex isn't the thing I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about the particular techniques that they're doing, or how did they achieve that effect here, you know, or getting really close and looking at the brush strokes and to make that muscle pop out in this way or that way, you know. So like my brain is very much looking at it in an artist sort of way where I'm deconstructing it in a sense, and I'm not really thinking about it in a sexual way. But you know, if the art is a particularly compelling piece of art and the figure in it, right, is that beautiful, one would hope that it does inspire some sort of arousal in the person viewing it, because that means you kind of like very much achieved what you were trying to do. You captured something really beautiful to the point where it was like sexy as well.
Well, I'd see the trouble with that. Like, part of comics as a visual medium is to communicate subconscious information that maybe the reader doesn't even know that they have there. So I was thinking in issue 3, there's a mermaid guy, and I show his butt, let's say, because
it's a nice butt.
I know I designed him to have a butt, because I think it's funny with mermaids.
I like that. I like it. It's realistic.
Look, I know I have a lot of lady readers who maybe would appreciate something like that just for fun.
And service, bro.
But to me though, as a person who makes something a product for people to consume, I want to make my audience happy. These are things that even Mary Sue, the character, is A, made to be attractive, but B, she's designed to be relatable as well. So if you have a lady reader, the character, Rosemary, is going to have lots of guys that she likes in the series. And I hope to actually expand like relationships for her and dating and whatnot. I want someday to see readers arguing about who's the best boyfriend or husband, or, you know, like the waifu.
Who should she get with? Yeah.
Who should she end up with? Yeah.
Who's the hottest guy for her to end up with? And I want to give lots of options for people to argue about. So you got the guy in the first 2 books, his name is Songbird. And he's maybe the bad boy type.
Yeah, he's hunky.
Sure. And then, you know, the mermaid guy is
more sensitive.
Sure, the artsy type. And
he's also royalty.
Yeah. There's other guys, and see, now I could give you spoilers, but like there's the problem with the royalty is she has to choose who's going to be the next king or queen in this kingdom, let's say.
Right.
but everyone else who's eligible has to be sacrificed to their god. So here's this nice guy who, is kind of cute or whatever. She thinks he's cute, but he's clearly not qualified to be a king. So if she doesn't pick him, he's going to die.
Oh dear.
So A, she doesn't get, to kiss the prince, but B, she doesn't want people to die because she doesn't know what to choose. So in the next few issues, her thing is to resolve that somehow to the best of her ability. And I'm really looking forward to doing that. But again, it takes a lot of time. But yeah, there's going to be guys for her to be courting, let's say. And Songbird's especially interesting to me because he is a bad guy, technically. Spoilers. But he's also got reasons for being a bad guy. And I want us to see her wrestle with that. As a professional, she has one thing that she needs to do for her job. She needs to arrest a guy and put him in jail. On the other hand, she doesn't want to arrest him. She likes him, but she's also mad at him. And she also has a million bazillion laser guns. So what's she going to do? I like that she doesn't know the answer yet. I know the answer, but she doesn't. So that's fun. That's a good story. So it's really about finding time.
Yeah, and I wanted to say that issue 3 especially, I was laughing loudly every page turn. I mean, this whole intro where the fox, like Bork, just bites the crap out of her, and she's like climbing out. I mean, the facial expression here, where she's like in abject horror.
Yeah,
this is what I was like, oh, that's so classic, George.
You can see the anime influence in that too, and the manga influence. Like, I always loved that they did that in Japanese animation. Like, sometimes they would just do these just exaggerated reactions, change the art style.
She's climbing out, covered in blood. She just killed me. I was like, oh my god,
sliding down the side of her ship, and there's a blood trail.
Yeah.
It's not even, she wasn't even in a fight. That makes me laugh. Yeah. I like that her pet hates her, which is based on my cat, who she loves being pet and stuff, but then she says, enough, don't touch me.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. Yeah. I love animals that are crazy.
Yeah, Bork has a lot of personality, and I love it. And I love that he's a fox. It's a little bit different than a dog or a cat.
Cats are definitely like that, though. It's very much like on their terms. Like, all right, I want attention now. All right, I'm done with the attention. Leave me alone. And it's like,
that scene was also useful because it introduces a mechanic in the story of their mermaid saliva heals wounds and stuff. And that makes it like in Star Wars. Are you guys Star Wars guys? I can't remember.
We are. We're fans.
All right, so in KOTOR, I remember there was this whole thing about where Bacta comes from, the Bacta tank. It's like a healing tank. Long story short, we wanted to do this rare saliva of this race of people underwater will heal anybody who's of the race that Rosemary is. It makes it incredibly valuable. And in order to get a whole case of the saliva, she has to do this thing that she didn't even know she had to do because her mentor tricked her. And so we have a comedic situation where she's slashed up from her animal and dying in this ocean. And then the comedy ends real quick and, oh, hey, here's a really important story thing. This stuff heals you instantly. And so in later issues, that's going to come up again, I hope.
Yeah, it's a great mechanic. And I was wondering, as the reader, I was like, oh shit, how is she gonna, I mean, she's like bleeding out right now. How the heck is he gonna get her out of this situation? And then he's like, oh, I can just lick you all over.
Well, it's good, right? It's good writing too, to like make sure that you bring those things back later, and it's not just a random one-off thing. It's part of the world building.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't just want to be like, oh, the saliva, you can use it for this, and then you never hear about this again. It never appears in the story again. It serves no other purpose later. Good writing, it's going to throw those things in there, and they're going to become relevant later. Like I only read issue 1, like I said earlier, but just like the references to like her father, you're already like getting hints that this is going to be important later to some extent, and it's just kind of stuff that's dropped into conversation. And you could easily miss it, but there's already bits of like foreshadowing of what's going to play out later or what will be important later.
Yes. Yeah, the goal, you want to throw red herrings out and then but again, it's a comic, so it's not like Game of Thrones where there's a million different theories. It's like, maybe this is a thing, maybe this is nothing. let's have some fun and keep reading and have a good story time. So, but that's the thing is, as I was writing all these scripts, I'm thinking so far ahead that maybe I'm setting up things that won't even resolve for 20 issues, and I feel bad about that. So.
No, I think that's good though, because it shows that you're putting forethought into it, and who knows, the future is open. You never know, some wealthy, billionaire, millionaire might come along and be like, George, you need to finish this. Here's all the money you need. Go.
I mean, you just got to keep doing it, man. Like I was saying before, I think that devoted audience will stick with you and they'll be patient, just because they like what you do and they appreciate it.
Shortly and not too distant in the future, you will probably be able to feed your art style into an AI then tell it what you want it to show, and then you can pick through a bunch of variations. I mean, it's possible.
It's already happening.
You have a very specific style, and I especially love the way you do explosions and energy. It's just it reminds me of the rave scene back in the day, because it's just light and color everywhere.
What I will say, as a traditional fine artist, someone who paints in oil paint, I've dabbled in digital and things like that, but I've always been more prone to just physically painting. You've made me appreciate digital brushwork more, which is something I guess I never quite took as seriously. But you definitely have a particular style in your brushwork, and it's weird to even call it brushwork because it's mouse work. I don't know, what the fuck do you call
stylus?
it? It's not stylus work because it's not brushwork, but it's the same sort of concept, just digitally, as the texture and that sort of thing that you get when you're painting.
I've always valued physical over digital, and I still do, but I can't deny the convenience that a stylus allows me in Photoshop and stuff. So I do like to draw in such a way where my strokes are still visible, and I have certain rules for myself where even people will meme on me where they say I can't draw hands, let's say. And when I do my under sketch in pencil, I have a rule where I don't correct mistakes once I've made them. In the same way that if I was oil painting and I draw a blob for a hand, if I was an impressionist, I would not finish that hand because I only have a few hours to finish this piece. So I paint as if I was drawing with physical media, and I intentionally don't fix errors that I could fix digitally. But if I was painting in plein air 200 years ago in France, I would not have had time to fix that. So I paint as if I'm using oil, if that makes sense. So Daniel, there is a way to train yourself. If you're ever interested, we could workshop it sometime. It can be a useful skill to paint digitally as if you're painting with oil. You can attune your brushes so that it behaves just like oil.
Yeah, I've dabbled. I have one piece I'll show you later. It was a still life that was commissioned by a friend of mine, and I very much tried to do that with that piece. I tried to paint it as if I didn't even use lines. I did, I think, a rough sketch, very rough, and then just painted everything in color. Yeah.
I had a teacher he called it blocking. Say I have a vase with a table and some utensils. Each one would just be a block of color.
Yes.
And then you go in and do the details.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I paint too, oil wise. I don't do alla prima, not normally. I definitely paint in layers. And yes, it takes a long time, that process, especially with oil, because oil could take a while to dry.
Yeah.
I use certain mediums like liquid to speed that process up.
Yeah.
And it's what I really like about oil is you can slow or speed up the drying time. And once you figure out how to do that, that's how you can achieve some really interesting things. But I understand the convenience too with digital. There's no cleanup, there's no dry time. There's no materials you have to keep buying and replacing and brush cleaning and all of those things that go along with it. But there's still something to be said, I think, for the physical medium. I don't think it's ever going to lose importance. And I think your approach is a really interesting one because it's fusing the two together in a sense. It's you're behaving as if you're painting in a physical medium, but you're not. It's all digital. It's all pixels. And
well, I like when I can see the human hand.
Yeah.
We talked about AI art, and it's so polished a lot of the time. And I just don't like when there are artists, I won't name them, I guess, who paint in such a way or draw digitally that you can't see any of their strokes. And that actually annoys me. I think it's lifeless. I want to see mistakes. It's like jazz. I want them to kind of break character sometimes, and just to remind me that a real human's making this. I don't want to see too much machine perfection, straight lines. I never use a ruler. I always draw my straight lines by hand so that there's just a little bit of curves and a little bit of imperfections. Because I think there's value in looking at a line and saying, I could do that if I just practiced a little bit, and it just makes it more real. That's why some people are really, really into ink art and line art. There's something about a pen stroke that says, I do that all the time. I know what that feels like. You can almost feel the strokes. I like that.
Yeah. I was wondering if, unless there's anything else do you want to give a little, maybe a little spoiler, maybe a little preview of where the story with Mary Sue, you're going to do one more issue underwater, you think, or?
Well, I could. That's the thing, though. I know that there's more that happens. But if I wanted to sort of see if readers are bored, I can take it in another direction. So where you left off, she just blew up a underwater, what do you call it? Like a forward operating base that she discovered was like this corporation's vacation spot / research lab. She blew it up by accident because she was going to be arrested by a robot controlled by a guy that she's never met before from like some remote security firm. And long story short, she was waylaid from her other mission, which was to choose. Man, I'm telling this terribly. She keeps getting distracted, and her only mission was to retrieve this case of saliva and pick a new king or queen. And she can't do that because she's crazy and she's derpy, and I love that. She can't just pick someone and say, okay, screw you guys, good luck, I'm taking my thing and I'm leaving. She has this moral code that she doesn't know that she has. So I can tell you that she has not decided a king or a queen choice. There are multiple people fighting. It's like Game of Thrones, but way lamer. And
I love that.
She has this friend who she has to basically decide, am I going to let him die? And he may or may not be the child of her mentor.
Right. Yeah, I caught that.
And what I like about that is that he doesn't seem to care that he has those two children with the queen. So again, spoiler talk. So her mentor, I guess, banged the queen of the fish people.
Who is not attractive.
What a
see those jokes of like, would you bang a mermaid if she had a fish head and a wound? Yeah. Well, he's a horny bastard, so he did that.
Oh God.
And so he had these two twin kids, a guy and a girl, and the girl is way nastier than the guy, but there's all this dumb drama that never gets addressed. But anyway, he doesn't seem to care if one of his kids dies. In fact, he doesn't even want to acknowledge that he has kids. Right. He sent Rosemary to pick up the stuff because he didn't want to look at the consequences of the choices he made 30 years ago.
Right.
So she has to choose now. Maybe she's going to choose. I can tell you what she does choose, but
no, don't spoil that.
I'm not going to spoil. But that's the thing, is I don't want to drop the ball on that. I could just fast forward to her next adventure, but I don't want to leave this hanging.
No, I don't think you should. I think you should tell the story the way that you feel is most natural without worrying about satisfying your audience so much, because your audience wants you to tell the story the way that you feel it's meant to be told and not to be rushed by external pressures or whatever. So I would just go with your pacing, like if it takes a long time, it takes a long time. And that's just the nature of writing. I mean, look at fucking George R. R. Martin. He's never going to finish those books.
He's probably never going to finish.
I mean? So like, you just do your thing, and as they come out, they come out, and we will appreciate. I will buy every single one.
Well, with all of that, I was thinking we could, I guess, talk a little bit about some of George's other projects, right?
Yes. I wanted to talk about, do you want to talk about the horror romance, or do you want to talk about the kids' book first?
Anything, whatever you guys are interested in.
Let's talk about the kids' book, because that's definitely changing gears. So you have this kids' book that's a story about mice. Do you want to give a little preview? You want to tell the parents out there what it's about so that they can get excited to buy it up for their kids?
Well, the project is, the story is about just a little mouse kid. He's a cute little adventurous type, and he has to pick some nice berries for his mom's pie that she made for her husband, his dad. And the story is about, I guess, picking the best berry, and he could pick the one that's outside of his house, which is very easy to get, or he can travel further and get better berries, but then there's more risk.
I love it.
And it's harder for him to bring them back. So he has to decide how far he wants to go. And maybe he runs into obstacles along the way. It's just this little 50-page pseudo comic, but also prose. I don't know what to compare it to. It's not like it's written in that way of the mouse jumped on the hill, the mouse jumped on the other thing, and it's written like 5 words per page. It's not like that. So it's written with lots of text in mind, I suppose.
What would you say the age range is for it?
That's also another problem for me, because I think it's going to need to be read to kids by parents, like at bedtime. I don't think kids are going to be able to read it, even though it's really, I would say from like 5 to 10, perhaps, that age range. But it does contain words that they probably won't be able to read. So I think it's going to be a parents with kids is the audience, probably.
Yeah, I just took a little screenshot you had up here on your Instagram of the little guy in his little pizza box bed. Is so cute. His little adventure kit. I love it.
It's really one of those things where I used to read children's books all the time, like Roald Dahl stuff, illustrated by a guy named Quentin Blake, and his stuff was so amazing, and I love it still. And I've always wanted to illustrate cutesy stories, but with lots of sweetness. And I've been trying to for a long time. Like, my comics that people know me for, I think, are pretty sarcastic and dark humor. But I wanted to make something that was fully 100% sweet and innocent.
It's cute. I love the art on the cover here. It looks amazing.
I mean, I think it's also important to like take a break from the more serious stuff, which like I guess Mary Sue is already sort of a break from the more serious stuff, but even a break from that, it's something just totally lighthearted and wholesome.
And it fits better too, because my family's making a family shop for like young parents and kids. So we're not just launching this book with that shop. It's also going to be bibs, dresses, shoes, all kinds of like little things that you could get for a kid that's of varying ages. But at our age, I know a lot of couples who are now having kids or have multiple kids, under 10, let's say. But we want to offer something for new parents that's like, there's a lot of things out there being presented for kids that's inappropriate, I think. Yeah. A lot of people are criticizing that. So not only, it's important to me to not just criticize that, but I want to also put something into the world that's an alternative that is sweet and innocent. And it's just a little mouse adventure. It's cute. And the things that my family is making for the shop are so sweet and innocent. And it's just a nice little something we could put into the world that's wholesome.
Yeah. Well, I think it does also relate to the bigger picture in the way that you're describing, because, like you said, there is a lot of this inappropriate stuff being put out right now, this woke propaganda and things like that, that's being passed off as, children's books, when really it's just more indoctrination. This is part of the culture war too, is contributing another option for people to
idea weapons.
Yeah, idea weapons. And I know Tim Pool talks about this on his show all the time too, is that we do kind of have to shift focus away from just the politics and all that stuff all the time, and look at culture, look at art, look at music and entertainment, You're seeing some of that from the conservative side more now, especially with stuff like the Daily Wire, like they're producing their own movies and stuff.
Well, it was a very famous quote from Andrew Breitbart: "Politics is downstream from culture."
From culture, yeah, and that's
we've seen that. We've seen evidence of that all throughout the 2020, 2021 period. We were thought that we were this law and order society, and then George Floyd gets murdered on a very viral video clip, and the entire country just goes nuts for months and months and months on end. And it was very clear that that was a cultural thing, and the reason the laws weren't enforced was because it was a cultural phenomenon, and there was this sort of mainstream pushed cultural tolerance for that kind of behavior, which is the exact opposite of what we saw when J6 came around. And the conservatives were like, oh, they've been rioting for months, we can have one.
Yeah.
And they were like, absolutely not. Now there's still people in jail.
Well, the thing about what you're talking about here is, and to link it back to the point I'm making, is like, yeah, BLM and all these movements and stuff, it's all political, but they're making art. They're using symbols, they're putting propaganda out there. And a lot of it is very sophisticated propaganda when you look at the mainstream woke left, right? And that's kind of, and I think we had this conversation when we were hanging out a couple months ago, George, like in person. And we were talking about, I guess, like how a lot of the right or conservatives tend to not value art as much. And I think it is one of their like fatal flaws that they need to address, perhaps. Not everyone with an art degree is just some loser who couldn't get a job. There is value in this stuff. And if they don't see that value and use it more, I don't see how they're gonna win in the culture war, because they're not when it comes to the art. But I think also the tides are probably turning, like I shouldn't speak too soon either. I think there are people for sure more and more, it feels like, who are getting tired of the woke shit as well. So
finding creators who are willing to work for less than minimum wage is very difficult. It's kind of necessity is the mother of invention kind of thing, where someone like me had been struggling to find an audience for over a decade. And then I saw this opening in the culture where I said, if I just serve an audience that I'm already kind of a part of, maybe I can find a way for me to make a name for myself. So I was willing to work for free for many years, and now I'm kind of making some money at it, but I'm still nowhere near the point where I could do it full time.
Yeah. So that's where we are too, man, with the show and stuff. So, and that's where I am in my art career as well. Like, pulled in some money, I've sold some paintings, but it's hard, man. It really is. Man.
So we're taking a gamble. We're assuming that somewhere down the road, this is going to pay off, even though we're working for free now. And that's the entrepreneur spirit, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But there are also places like, well, I guess I won't name them out of respect, but there are places who are funding creators under an umbrella that, oh, here's our company and we're going to publish X, Y, and Z people. Maybe that'll work out. Maybe that's not the model we need. I don't know. I think we should try a little bit of everything. I would love it if I could get super funded from an entity, but then I also am a control freak and I don't work well with others. So I don't know if I could work with
you would
need a publisher.
You would need a publisher. You need somebody that would give you like an angel investor, who would just give you, money to just continue to do what you were doing,
let you have creative
and let you have all the creative control. Because
maybe, I don't know if I've said this before. I have been offered that stuff, and I said no, for various reasons. But I think there are opportunities in the air, but it has to be done correctly, because there's a lot of predators out there. I should be very vague with this. There's a lot of people who will take advantage of the culture war by funding someone like myself. They'll super fund me. But then there's all this like creepy fine print that you don't know about. And I don't trust any of that stuff either. So I'm not eager to take free money.
To reiterate the intro, the wandering cartoonist who serves no master. No master.
It's tongue-in-cheek. But I would prefer, I want to work for my audience directly. And I'm not in a rush to involve middlemen who might have shadow money from God knows where. If I, George, cannot make more than X per month, I don't know where in the world he thinks, or this group thinks, they're going to make money off my name. That I can't do it myself. Where's their money coming from? So I get very suspicious with that stuff.
As you should.
But again, we know that the far left has been doing this for many years, where they've been funding Hollywood. You know, Razor Fist has that famous video of Hollywood was always red. And that's a really important video, just talking about how there were all these like secret communists funding all kinds of movies, even back as far as the 40s, maybe. And they know to fund culture because it's their religion. It fuels their religion, whereas the right already has a religion, and I think they're willing to. You get like silly stories like Bible Man, or just cheesy, say Christian. Not cheesy bad, but like you have to make a Lord of the Rings.
That's why I was just thinking about that. I'm like, you have to be able to incorporate those religious themes into your world building, into your story in a way that is not just so in your face and apparent and browbeating, but it's clear enough in the story where you can see, oh, these values are derived from these values. And Tolkien, he very much was able to do that in his storytelling without making it obvious, that there were Christian themes in it.
Yeah, Star Trek, The Next Generation did that incredibly well. That's why, I think it was such a cultural phenomenon is that the writing quality was just so high, and that the values that were being dispersed through the medium were classic liberal values.
So Doctor Who this is why Doctor Who is failing right now. And, because it went woke, and it started kind of like browbeating the audience with this stuff, when Doctor Who used to not have to do that. You didn't have to make an episode about Rosa Parks to make a point about racism. They did it with groups of aliens and stuff like that to make the point,
They're desperate to make sure that their message is heard, and by doing that, you have to trick audiences into, it's sort of like casting a spell on them. Writing is like casting a spell. I'm going to write a sequence of words over a certain amount of pages, and if you read the sequence and download them into your head, something will come out of your head that wasn't there before. It's like magic. But if audiences want to give themselves to that because it's pleasurable, it's like a dream. Like I used to read Anne Rice novels when I was in my late teens, and the way that she wrote was so hypnotic.
Yeah.
And maybe now I would read it again and it would be cheesy, but as a younger man, I would read this stuff. I'm like, wow, I'm in this world. It's beautiful. But I don't like when an author starts telling me, hey, I'm going to put a spell on you now. Keep reading this page. There's a cheesiness. There's something in my subconscious that I don't want to know that I'm dreaming. Something like that. It's like when the Matrix was talking about there was something in the human mind that rejects perfection.
Yes, rejected the original program that the architect tried to impose on them because it was too perfect.
Humans want, I can't believe the story is real unless there are imperfections, and that's why I don't like stories where the author is in the background and I can see them.
You can see the hand, yeah.
I wanted to talk about your horror romance novel, or the manga.
I would love to, thank you.
Yeah, and again, another
I gotta find some pictures.
Another totally different genre from what we were just talking about. It's like we're about to go like night and day right now. But what is your interest in horror, and why did you decide to even like write a story like that?
Well, we mentioned Anne Rice before. I like the gothic horror romance. It's weird to think that those genres fit so well together.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
I was something like Phantom of the Opera, for example, the movie. I'm absolutely in love with it. There's something about the character of like the Dracula, the castles, the rundown buildings, dust, cobwebs. And then at the same time, I like Jane Austen, and
that's unusual for a man. I don't commonly find too many men who are big Jane Austen fans, because she very much did write for women, I would say.
I can't, like, even as a kid, I liked the musicals like Grease, and
Yeah, me too.
I can't explain. Who cares?
More
Straight,
proof,
gay.
guys. More proof that George is gay. You heard it here first.
No, straight.
Well, but like I want to look at those people in the eye who would say that that's weird, and it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
I like things. I don't need to explain why I like them.
Right, yeah.
Well, there's nothing wrong with men and straight men being touched with sensitive sides and sensitive subjects and things like that. There's nothing wrong with that shit.
I don't wake up and ask for permission to enjoy things. I just enjoy them. So like I know all the lyrics to Phantom of the Opera, stuff like that. I love that stuff. So castles, and I was even watching The Addams Family recently, and I love the Gomez-Morticia relationship. There's just something so fun about dressing up and being dark, and and also romance. So anyway,
Frankenstein is another good like gothic novel.
Yeah, and the old Bela Lugosi Dracula and stuff, and black and white films. So because of that love of black and white stuff and horror romance, I made this story called Bad Dreams, where it started out as I just did an illustration for a little art contest, and it snowballed into this whole story of there's this guy with a magic sword in the woods, and he's being attacked by a beast, a monster. And it's also kind of like Bloodborne, if you've played that game. Okay. It's sort of like Lovecrafty, dark monster. It's straddling a lot of different genres. But anyway, so I had to make up this story for a character who was holding a sword in the woods. And then this woman came out of nowhere in my imagination, and I said, oh, okay, so she's the love interest. And then let's build what their house would look like. And they fall in love, and I started adding all these little details of their marriage, romance, and who he is. And there's this underlying story in this town where he came back from war, and their country is perpetually at war, going into the corners of the world and taking things from like the ignorant savages. And he came back for some reason, and because he had committed a war crime or something. And there's not a lot of men in their country, so there's this monster on the loose killing children and people. And he's the only capable man because he's back from the war. All the other men of fighting age are out abroad, attacking every tribe in the middle of nowhere kind of thing. But his whole thing is I guess it's early in the story, but there's a monster on the loose, and he's just trying to get his life together. And he meets this nice lady who he likes a lot, and she's allegedly seen the monster, but he doesn't quite believe her yet. And so in issue 2, it's like a murder mystery. He's got to go check it out, and he's trying to put his life of violence behind him, but now it has followed him home. And underlying that, there's the love story and a little bit of Jane Austen-y flavors. But it's even in the Jane Austen novels, the men were perpetually abroad, and I always wondered why. What were they doing? And then you hear about the stories of like the East India Company and stuff, and what were they doing out there? And what were the men doing in the Jane Austen universe? And you only hear about the women and what it's like for them.
Yeah, that's true.
You put the whole thing, I didn't realize, but you put the whole thing online.
Yeah, and nobody... Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of attention, but that's okay. But that's the weird thing about a story like this is it doesn't get good numbers, but the people who read it really like it. And that's a cool feeling. So I want to continue it. I have been drawing it slowly in the background.
I love the black and white style.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. It definitely creates the vibe of the gothic horror romance.
It's I think what else did From Hell very much had this similar style to it, all black and white, kind of rough around the edges. That's a good one.
I'm digging it so much.
Yeah, I really enjoy the English. There's a lot of contrasting feelings in a story like this. So I hope I get to finish it. I can work on Mary Sue. I can work on this. I can work on my political comics. and I have to finish the mouse book. So it's
good. I mean, look, at least you're staying busy. You have all these projects that you can work on. Although I imagine it does feel overwhelming and frustrating sometimes when you're not quite seeing, the income come in from your labor. And I get that, as an artist, I totally understand that. But I don't know, man, you're going places. I would just keep doing it. I would definitely keep every project up. And if you have an interest in telling different stories, don't sacrifice one type of story that you want to tell simply because, I don't know, my audience might not receive it the same way. There will be an audience for that story, just like this one,
I appreciate the encouragement. You guys are right. And I think it's really, I have to convince myself, if I'm going to spend X hours per day on something, I need to know that it's going to be worth the time. But I also want to plant seeds for other projects that could be worth my time a year from now. Because political stuff, I've been saying this lately. I don't know if I've been saying it publicly, but I'm really sick of the news. I'm sick of politicians and celebrities.
Same.
I sit down to draw a strip to make fun of Biden or something, and I'm like, I don't want to draw this asshole ever again. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of them. And, it's fun, and the news needs satire and stuff, but I, as a creator, am so fed up with all of it. So, maybe I will lose.
It makes it more admirable to me, though, that you still do it anyway, because I feel like right now we need satirists. we need people to push back against these people in the way that you're doing it. Because it cuts right to the core of some of these issues. I think satire has a way of doing that just in a way that an essay or a speech or something simply can't, It really distills an issue down to its core constituents and stuff.
Also, your satire is so sharp that a lot of people just don't.
Some don't get it, yeah.
And I love watching the comments. And sometimes I don't even get it at first. There's a reference that I miss. I have to look something up. I love it. It's intelligent fucking comedy. And the fact that so many people have to ask about what it's about, it's great because it shows that there's this huge divide in the culture about just awareness in general, and that some people are aware of all this stuff and can get the joke, and then other people aren't aware of it, and that you're even presenting that lack of awareness via comedy, makes people, people like me anyway, question okay, what am I missing here? What's the reference that I didn't get?
I think some things, though, it's a matter of approach as well. It's a matter of some things just aren't meant for everyone to get to.
Exactly,
there's also that, and
I love it.
So that's kind of how I am with my poetry, for example. Some poems I write and I know all right, this is going to have more general, this will appeal to a more general audience. More people will be able to relate to this. And then sometimes I write a poem and I'm like, this is going to be really abstract and symbolic, like a puzzle, and I know most people who read this are going to have to decipher it, and most of them aren't going to want to do that, so they probably won't get it, and that's fine. It's not meant for them. It's meant for the person who wants to do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's what is your approach to the piece of art that you're putting out? And something might be a little more difficult, and that's fine, because you also don't want to dumb things down, right? You don't want to underestimate your audience and that sort of thing, because I think they can feel that.
No, from a craft perspective, I want to make sure that the point that I want to make is clear enough to the people who know how to read it. Yeah. And then for the people who don't get it immediately, I trust that the comments will eventually clarify it. Yeah. But I, as a creator, should not say what this story or comic strip is about, because then I failed.
Yes.
And if I do fail, I need to do better next time. So there are strips where people will say, is he joking? Where I drew DeSantis as a hurricane.
We're going to find out.
And he's destroying Florida. And some people are like, wait, so you're criticizing DeSantis? And then I had to bite my tongue. I'm like, no.
It's no, this is about people criticizing DeSantis.
But I can't.
Everything.
Yeah, if I say that, then the joke dies.
Yes.
So I have to let people misunderstand. There's another strip I did with Martha's Vineyard recently.
That's funny, man.
Some ladies were saying, "Oh my gosh, is that an immigrant over there?"
Oh yeah.
That one, right? And so some people said, "Wait, are you, George, comparing immigrants to trash?" And they didn't see the article on NBC where a guy said, "Bringing your immigrants to Martha's Vineyard is like dropping off your trash in someone else's yard." And I am okay with people misunderstanding the strips, but it's the hardest part is not saying anything when I know they're wrong, but I can't clarify because I don't want this strip to be about me. It's very important. Like, I don't like doing self-insert jokes where even I was doing the jujitsu,
I love those, man. It cracked me up.
It was fun to play that game with Reddit for a little while, but I really don't want me. I don't want the comics to be about me. So it's really hard to bite my tongue sometimes.
I do love though when you like randomly insert yourself into the background though of a strip, and you just know because you do this like this sort of caricature face of yourself, so you're like, oh, that's George.
That's like the Handmaid's Tale one, where some girls were on. I didn't see the show.
They're online, right? Wait.
Yeah, they're being like, oh, this one looks fresh. I can impregnate this one. And so I put myself in the back as a creep because it's funny to be the bad guy. And then some Reddit assholes are like, aha, what's he secretly trying to confess to? For God's sake, can I not tell a joke anymore? And you can't negotiate with these people. So just say whatever you're going to say. Yes, that's true. I hate everybody. I'm a racist. Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, I love
the woman's just thinking, I wish I had an AR thing.
I cast myself as the bad guy. Yeah. It's just a comic. We're just telling jokes here. So,
but there's a meta joke to it too, because you're also poking at your critics who cast you as this bad guy. So it's honestly,
you're like wearing the caricature as it's a brilliant reversal. You're just sort of like flipping it. It's like rhetorical or artistic jujitsu, where you're taking their idea of what you are and you're flipping it around and showing it back and being like, this is actually it. And the funny thing is that when they take that as some sort of like confessional, like it's just you guys are so dumb.
Well, some will double down, but I think some it probably does disarm them a bit. When you make fun of yourself in this way and you say, oh well, okay, if you say I'm this, I'm gonna like draw myself as this and make fun of the fact that this is how you perceive me.
Yeah, I'm okay with lowering the temperature of the criticism so that we're actually having fun again.
Yeah.
Like, I will laugh at myself all day if we can just have some fun. But there are those critics who just want to hurt me, and I can't joke around with them, and so I have to ignore them. And then there are my critics who just say, hey, you're making too many jokes about this subject, maybe take it easy. And then I say, okay, yeah, I'm a rapist too, sure. Let's have some fun now and let's lower the temperature.
Someone's going to clip that out and they're going to just make a clip of you.
We don't have that many haters watching our show.
Not yet.
Let them. But that's the thing, is all you can do to really, when someone says crazy things, is, yeah, sure, I'm a racist. I hate all those people. I especially hate those people, you know what I mean? Those people, they do the thing. I hate them. They're the worst. They need to be cleansed from the face of the earth.
Josh and I were talking about this over the weekend when we were in Burlington, the power of mockery and how you can just, especially gay mockery, and the way we were doing it is we were criticizing the alphabet gays or the trans rights gays from the traditional gay perspective, and we were just getting really catty and really clean.
I like that phrase. Yeah. Traditional gays.
Yeah, the original recipe gays.
As Josh used to call himself on Twitter before Twitter removed him, as they acquiesced to a rabid hate mob of local Vermonters. Thankfully, they haven't found me yet, but who knows? They this hate mob up in the local Vermont community. They organized and they got Christopher Felker, who's the Vermont chairman of the GOP party. The elected, I should say, chairman of the GOP party, Josh and Kevin Hurley, Josh's producer. They got them all kicked off of Twitter just by mass reports. They organized, they showed the accounts, and then every time they popped up, they would just mass report. And they got them both, or they got all three of them knocked off Twitter, which just goes to show how crappy Twitter is.
Didn't Elon actually settle this though? Is he actually buying it?
I don't know. I haven't updated myself on the Elon drama.
I feel like it just keeps going like.
So I also think, not to totally divert to Elon, but I think he's playing 4D chess here. I think he always wanted Twitter, and the whole I don't really want it now thing was just like his way of sort of making sure the deal went through. But that's a little aside.
Yeah, let's not get too much into that. I don't know. You want to wrap it up here? We've been going like an hour and a half.
Yeah, sure. George,
I don't want to
do you
take
have
up too much of
any final thoughts? Anything you want to blast out there that you haven't gotten to? You want to ask us any questions?
I don't know. You guys have been so generous with your time. I was really, my biggest concern right now is finding time to do all these silly little things that we're passionate about. We're all in the same boat, really. We talked about this last time. So I don't really have anything special aside from if you guys could, all the listeners, keep your eyes out. My new family shop is like my next big project that I really want to branch out into wholesome stuff, and my family's really passionate about it. So
are you going to have a physical location, or is this going to be an online store?
It's going to be Etsy again, but it's a completely, I'm just a worker in this shop. I'm not the actual person running it.
Okay.
So we'll have more details soon, but I'll have my little mouse book, and the things that we're making are really sweet. And I hope that it's something that can even survive, even if I get canceled and all that stupid crap. I hope it outlives me and really becomes something that like even normies and mainstream people who would hate me normally would see this stuff and say, this is really good and wholesome, and we're going to get it for our kids. So I want my name to actually not be too associated with it, even though I'll be promoting it. That's my
okay. You are uncancelable, sir.
Yeah, and when you have that link come through, let me know, and I will I'll update the description with that link.
Yeah, we'll blast it.
It's up, but we're still getting it together. We want to announce everything at the same time, so it'll be in the next few months.
Okay, yeah, and I can easily go back and edit the description. So anytime you get it, just let me know.
I appreciate that.
Awesome, guys! Be sure to follow George on Twitter.
GPrime85 across your Twitter, Instagram.
Yep.
You can see all of his updates. This is mostly I was pulling his stuff off of IG and Twitter.
But yep, go support his work. Go buy some comics. Go buy some merch. Support independent artists. I think that is really how we're going to win this culture war. I think it's probably the most effective way, perhaps, more than the ballot boxes. Although I don't want to, shit on that process either, because all that stuff is also important.
Make sure you go out, vote Republican or independent or wherever you want. Just don't vote Democrat.
Just be an independent thinker. Don't be swayed too much by all this propaganda out there, and, think critically.
And check out George's Etsy shop. Make sure you swing through. Definitely pick up Mary Sue. You're gonna want issues 1 and 2 because the story continues immediately, and you really you're gonna want that second issue on hand. So make sure you get first 1 and 2 at the same time. If you like it, get the rest of them. I'm having an amazing time with the story. I'm gonna, I love the art. I like that you ship them in the little plastic containers so I can keep them nice.
He forgot to sign one though. You were supposed to bitch at him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm gonna have to make sure when I see you next, I have to have you sign them all.
No, they were all signed. There was one of them though.
There's one that wasn't.
I was like, Brent, you better complain to him and be like, George, what the fuck?
My bad,
bro.
All right, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, give us money. There's donation links in the description. We love you. We'll be back again soon. We're gonna end the recording. Bye bye.
Later.